friends, welcome back to my channel, Planty Princess. My name is Ashley. Today we are going to talk about 5 common houseplant myths. Without any further ado, we are going to jump right into this video. The first houseplant myth I wanted to talk to you guys about is the fact that many of us, including myself, I definitely used to think this and act on it right away, that wilting leaves means they need water, which is in every case not the case. So there are many different reasons for wilting leaves. So before you go ahead and pick up that watering can and act right away and give that plant some water, there's a few things you want to check on the plant and also kind of do some research to consider some other options. Before you water your plant, you definitely want to make sure that it does in fact need water. I would go ahead and check my soil. If my soil is wet, well then the plant most definitely does not need water, at least in the form of watering the soil. The plant could have wilting leaves because it does need water, but there's either fungal diseases or bacteria in the soil that is causing the roots not to be able to absorb the water, like root rot and things of that nature. Also, waterlogged soil also prevents the roots from being able to transfer that water to the plant because all that water around the roots is preventing oxygen from getting to the roots. Another one is overwatering. Overwatering also does cause that same effect, that same side effect, the wilting leaves, the yellowing leaves, stuff like that. So again, you want to check your soil. If your soil is wet, then it's probably wilting because it's overwatered. Another common reason for wilting leaves is insufficient sunlight or poor sunlight, improper sunlight. So either too much light or too little light. Not enough light makes a plant grow on the weaker side. So therefore, it's not able to properly hold its leaves upright, keep them stiff, keep them from that wilting. So that's another thing you definitely want to consider. What kind of light is your plant getting? Last but not least, insect damage. Does your plant have insects or has it previously had insects? Some insects, not all, but some insects literally use the plant as a water fountain and suck all the liquids out of the plant, so it is not able to properly hold itself up. Therefore, again, it's going to wilt. So those are just some things you want to make sure you check before you go ahead and grab that watering can and immediately just give it a nice thorough watering, because that may not be why your plant is wilting in the first place. And if it's not, giving it excess water is just going to make it 10 times worse, and it's going to make it harder to distinguish why it's wilting, because then it's obviously going to start to have some wilting because it's overwatered as well, and it's going to make that recovery process a little longer. Next, I wanted to talk about adding stones or pebbles to the bottoms of our pots to help drainage. So this doesn't necessarily help your pot drain better. And the reason is because scientifically, it is hard for water to pass through a small particle and then into a bigger particle. So putting those bigger rocks or pebbles at the bottom of our pots under the soil is just going to make it so that way the really wet soil is just higher up now, because now you have, your bottom of your pots here, you have rocks up to here, your roots are here, and you have soil here. So that is just going to push that waterlogged soil up closer to the roots, first of all, and second of all, it's going to keep it wet longer because it's so hard for water to pass from a smaller particle to a larger particle. So one good way to prevent this and also help your soil drain better is to, rather than placing those stones at the bottom of your pot, mix them in with your soil. Perlite, pumice, lava rocks, or even just those pebbles that you were going to be using at the bottom of your pot. Mixing it into your soil rather than leaving it lay at the bottom of your pot will definitely help with the drainage better than it would if you were just, like I said, to keep those rocks at the bottom. The third myth I wanted to talk to you guys about today is yellowing leaves means that your plant is dying. This is not always true. It could be true, but it is not always true. So first and foremost, you want to check where is the yellow leaf on your plant? Is it at the bottom? Is it in the middle? Is it at the top? You know, stuff like that. Where is it yellowing on the leaf? Is it yellowing around the edges? Is it yellowing in the middle? All this stuff plays a very important role in why your leaves are yellowing. So in most cases, plants lose leaves, and you know, every leaf isn't going to live forever. And the process before they lose their leaves is very natural. The leaf will yellow because the plant is taking all the sugar, all the nutrients out of that leaf before it discards of it to give what's left in that leaf to distribute it to the rest of the plant, which is like I said, completely normal process for plants to be doing. So that's if normally the leaf is at the bottom of the plant. It's one of the older leaves. Now, if you have a middle-ish leaf or definitely a newer leaf yellowing, then you definitely want to check that out, see what's going on, because that can definitely be a cause of problem. And there's a lot of reasons for yellowing leaves, just like the wilting. Could be overwatering, underwatering, sunlight, all that types of stuff. But like I said, you just want to check first where it's yellowing and what leaf is yellowing. Moving on to number 4, a strict watering schedule is best. I used to think this too. I literally used to mark on my calendar the days that I watered my plant and then the next day that I wanted to water my plant. And I would go either like on a weekly schedule or every 10 days, something like that, depending on what the plant was, how thirsty of a plant it was. Is it a cactus? Is it an epiphyte? You know, stuff like that. Is it a succulent? Does it have succulent-like leaves? So I would base my watering schedule based on how much or how often I thought those plants needed water. And this was without checking the soil, without checking if the leaves were still firm or not. And that is definitely probably one of the worst things you can do, because this will then lead you to either overwatering or underwatering, which both are very not good for any plant. Some plants can tolerate either or a little better than others, but still you definitely have those finicky plants that will not tolerate either and just will be a big cause for problems. So a strict watering schedule is just not the way to go. There is no schedule for watering plants. And this is why, like, when I talk about the care of my plants and, you know, as far as watering goes, I try to stay away from, I water my plant every 7 days. I water my plant every other week, because just because I do, if that is the case, doesn't mean that you have the same plant. That doesn't mean that same plant in your care is going to need the same watering schedule as mine. So I try to, you know, maybe I will mention how often then I typically do water a plant, but I will also try to always mention that I wait until the soil is completely dry. The soil is halfway dry. The soil is dry 2 inches down. And all that definitely does make a big difference, because when you water your plant, depends on many factors. And this could be the amount of light your plant gets, the amount of humidity your plant is in, how fast your soil dries out, what type of soil or medium your plant is in. So many things play a part in the temperature your plant's in. So many things play a part in, you know, how fast your soil or your medium dries out and when the next time your plant will need a drink. Also, just because your soil's dry or your medium's dry does not always mean that your plant needs to be watered right away either. I do have quite a few plants that I wait till the soil dries, and then I even wait another day or 2 or even 3 before I go ahead and give that plant a drink. So you definitely just want to make sure you're testing your soil either with a moisture meter. A moisture meter will be one of your best friends, especially if you're a beginner gardener. I don't use one so much anymore just because I've gotten used to the weight of my pots when they're wet and dry, or when they need a water and when they don't. But you know, starting out and even every once in a while, I still do use a moisture meter. And like I said, it will be your best friend. Use it, stick your finger in the soil, and definitely check if your soil is wet before you go ahead and water. Last but not least, plants grow bigger in a bigger pot. No, don't think like that, because that definitely will not be the case. Your plant will grow super slow. It will have many problems. It also may not grow at all because it's focusing on filling that soil up with some roots, and it will just stunt the growth of your plant rather than promote growth on your plant. So that's definitely something you also do not want to do. You want your plant to be in a pot. Now, this does vary. Some plants do like to be root bound, some can't stand it. So that's something else you also want to take into consideration when choosing a size of your pot. But in general, you definitely want a pot that if your plant is, you know, if your root ball is maybe, you know, 2 inches across, you maybe want an inch on each side. So a 4-inch pot would be perfect for, you know, that type of plant. You want your roots to have some space to grow, but you don't want so much space, so much medium in a pot that your plant is now overwhelmed. The leaves are stunted. If it's a flowering plant, the flower growth is stunted, and all your plant is focusing its energy on is trying to grow some roots to fill up that pot. So that's another big myth that you definitely want to stay away from. Even plants that grow big, like even plants that you're starting off in a 4-inch pot but will eventually be in an 8-inch pot or a 6-inch pot, just because your plant can grow that big doesn't mean you should just throw it in that pot right away thinking that you're going to save yourself time by not having to repot the plant, because again, it won't grow very well. It won't be the healthiest plant. Using a little extra time and, you know, having to repot a few times rather than just repotting once when it's ready to be out of that nursery pot it came in and sticking it in that 8-inch pot. Repotting once is going to, in the long run, make more work for you and make your plant so unhappy. So it's better to just take the time, do it properly. You want to step your plant up in pot size slowly. So I normally go up, if I'm in a 4-inch pot, I'll go up to a 5-inch pot. Unless my plant is like super root bound, then maybe I'd go up to a 6-inch pot, unless again, if it's a plant that likes to be root bound. So again, just like everything else on this list, there are so many things that come into play here when you're deciding what size to up your plant to. But just again, keep in mind that a bigger pot does not mean a bigger plant. I hope all these myths kind of help you settle the score with what is helpful and unhelpful for your plants, what to do for yellowing leaves, wilting leaves, any kind of problems you may be having with your plant, and definitely help you and encourage you to do some research before acting on your plant. Thank you guys again for joining me in another video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in the content I provide. And as always, every plant's a princess. Bye.